everyone, and welcome to Sheer Edge Training. Today's live chat is all about health and safety, and are you health and safety ready? We're really lucky to be joined by Helen McCabe this afternoon. Helen is Health and Safety Advisor for Harrier. Hi Helen, how are you today?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, good. I'm good, thank you. We've also got on the call with us, we've got Joe, and Joe is going to be co-hosting the chat today. Hi Joe, how are you?
Hi, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. So before we get going, just a little bit of information for you. For those of you watching the live chat on Zoom, please feel free to post some questions in the chat box and we'll monitor those questions and then ask them to Helen at the end. If you are watching via Facebook, please feel free to post any questions in the comments, and again, we'll make sure they're asked to Helen. So now all the introductions are out the way, it is over to some questions for Helen. So we're going to start off easy, Helen, then we're going to get a bit more difficult.
Brilliant.
So, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you've got to where you are today?
Well, I've been in hospitality, leisure and events all my career, which is far too long for when I've tried to work it out earlier. I've always been sort of tagged with the health and safety responsibilities. So clearly from the age of about 19, someone thought I could do it, which is great. But really got into it when I was senior event manager at Nottingham Arena, where I was there for quite a while. So we looked after all the crew and everything as well. So you can imagine there's quite a lot of safety involved in that. After there, I joined Harrier, starting very quickly on being dropped in at the deep end at the European Games in Baku in Azerbaijan. So that was a bit of a baptism of fire when it comes to health and safety, but it was really interesting and really useful. Learned loads of stuff from that, which is really good. And from there, we've just developed the company. So we focus mainly on events and working with the hospitality and the leisure industry and venues and things like that. But we also look after small business. So we have a really wide portfolio of clients, which is really useful. So actually, we take quite a lot of this stuff we learn from events, which is obviously very fast paced and got to move quickly, into the small business side, which is normally a bit slower, but they sort of not yet sometimes as reactive. So it quite works really well. And since I've joined Harrier, we've won 2 safety awards, which has been really good. So we've got an International Safety Award from the British Safety Council. And then we've also won a Festival Suppliers Award for Best Health and Safety, which was also really good and really nice to get that one. So I look after the training as well. So I deliver IOSH, managing safely, and other training for clients, as well as everything else. So it's all good. It's very varied, which is great because you learn loads. So yeah, really good.
Well, that's one thing I was just going to say. Actually, you've got a really varied background, which makes you, I suppose, approachable and knowledgeable as well about all aspects of health and safety, because a lot of it you've done on the event side. So that really helps to explain to people, well, actually, I've done this and this happened.
Absolutely. So I've been the event manager. I've been the one with the weight of the world on your shoulders when you're trying to get doors open and you've got stuff hanging out the ceiling and that still. I've also been involved with I've had accidents on our site. Luckily, nobody's been seriously injured, but we've dealt with insurance companies. I've dealt with claims, and luckily had a couple of them, most of them thrown out, which has been nice due to paperwork. So paperwork does help. But yeah, so we've had that practical hands-on, we've had emergencies, we've had evacuations, we've done all of those kind of things. We've dealt with things like when we had the swine flu outbreak, which I know is nowhere near what we've got right now. I don't think anything ever is, but it's meant that, there's been points where we've had to deal with tricky things as well as your day-to-day, and it does really help when you can say to customers, actually, I was you because I've done this. This really works. So.
And I think, well, from an event manager perspective, that really helps. That actually, if you've got practical knowledge and application of it, it's easy to explain, and actually it's like, oh, okay, you've done that and this happened and let's try it, so I think that does really help.
Yeah, so all the stuff we do is generally obviously underpinned by the legislation and the regulations and everything, but actually I generally say to my clients, if I'm having to explain it to you in terms of regulations and legislation, you're really not listening to me, because I'm generally putting it in like nice practical terms so that you can, we don't want to just be baffling people with HSG 65 and all the other health and safety acronyms out there. We want to be giving you practical advice that you can actually follow.
So for everybody out there, what is health and safety? Tell us what it is.
basically keeping people alive. So we're looking at physical health, which is the obvious one that everyone looks at. So, you know, stopping people losing limbs, breaks, slip, trips, falls. But there's also the mental health side, which is coming out more to the forefront now, which is really positive because it has such an impact on safety. And there's also people's welfare. So it's not just about not killing people, it's about making sure that people can be happy, they can go home with the same mental state that they arrived in. You know, we all have tough days and stressed and pressured, but it's that prolonged impact on people's mental health and that health and safety is concerned with, which is great. And from an event perspective, it covers all aspects from your start in the planning process all the way through to your end of your loadout. I think we've all been on loadouts where it's almost like all of that's forgotten, but actually it's less so now. And actually the events that you can see that build in health and safety from the start, it doesn't become an add-on. It's not an add-on, it's just part of it, and it's really natural for people to do that. And it's everyone's responsibility as well. It's not just down to the organiser, it's down to the organiser to communicate, but it's also down to the contractors, the volunteers, staff, and even the public. You know, everyone's got a bit of a responsibility within that health and safety bracket to make sure that we're looking after each other. But as I said, it's primarily aimed at people. And if you focus on the people, would it be, you know, how would you feel if someone in your team got seriously hurt? Health and safety's there to stop that happening, or attempt to stop that happening. We can't stop every accident, but I like to think I've got my superhero cape that can do that. It's not realistic. But it's also not an excuse. I'm sure you can imagine that if somebody says to me I can't do something because of health and safety, I'll be saying why. Because if you can't tell me why I can't do it because of safety, I've had some really weird things that I've been told I can't have an iron in a hotel because of health and safety, etc. Things, you're like, I can kind of see why, but if you can't explain it, then it's not.
Don't just use it as a blanket excuse. It's not a blanket excuse. If you can justify and explain why, that's different. I liked how you've kind of linked it, that health and safety is kind of part of the start of every process. You don't just add it in halfway through. So like from an event perspective, you should be thinking about it right from planning. From a venue perspective, you're thinking about it from when the building's built, when it's opened, everything. It needs to be right at the start. It's much harder to kind of bring it in halfway through the process when you've already got people ingrained in one way of working or thinking.
And it also costs as well. You know, if you can look at it from the start, you can plan things into your, you know, if you've got signage, you can plan your safety messaging into your signage, as opposed to suddenly having all your signage printed and then being like, we meant to tell them that.
Damn it. Yeah.
And then adding it on. You know, it can save you money. You can get, you know, suppliers will be more involved, you know, might be able to come up with solutions for you if they know what you're aiming for. So yeah, it's definitely one, if you can get it in early enough, it really does make a difference to that cost.
So I think you've basically kind of answered my next question, and being, why is health and safety important to everybody, to us, to me, to you, to the world?
Well, it's about the people, isn't it? Like, none of us, you know, want to think that our members of our family are going to go to work and come home or not come home. You know, that is generally the worst case scenario, but actually small little things can really make a difference to to people's lives. You know, we've had people, you know, as I said, we deal with insurance cases sometimes, and you know, the stories that come out of those are pretty horrible. You know, even just down to, I fell over, I tripped over a cable, hurt my back, and now I can't pick my son up. I know, and it's horrible, but we don't think of that human consequence. We just look at it from a paperwork point of view, or it'll never happen, because we're all very positive in the events industry, aren't we? It's all amazing. We are. Maybe now's a bit less so, but at the moment, normally we're all really positive. So it's looking at that human consequence and just thinking, you know, and I don't walk around with a big black cloud over my head all the time. It's generally, you know, how can we stop that happening? And that's quite good. The other thing is customer service. I don't know about you, but if you've ever been to somewhere where there are trailing cables, there's rubbish everywhere, fire exits blocked, you don't really have a great time. You feel a little bit uneasy, or, you know, if you're at a restaurant and you've got your servers dangling their hair in your food or whatever, it's a bit icky. So it's good customer service. And actually, again, going back to if you bring it in from the start, and even more so at the moment, if your customers and your delegates feel confident and safe when they're coming to your event, you're going to get less questions, you're going to get a lot happier customers. So if we look at it from that point of view, and there's been some really good case studies where people have integrated customer service instead of looking at it as safety, looked at it as customer service. And it's really, the input is massive, and it really does make a difference. But the other reason for why it's important is obviously the aim is to not hurt anybody, but if you do, you're leaving yourself open to criminal cases and also civil cases, which is, can really impact massively on a business. It could, it increases your insurance premiums, it damages your reputation. So there's all that other side of it that comes from hurting people or not caring or not doing enough. So
no, thanks. I think that's definitely explained it all in kind of layman's terms, but then kind of a more business perspective, that actually you want people to understand why you're doing it, but actually then there's the consequences to not doing it, which we all need to kind of understand as well. So obviously now we're in slightly unusual times. I won't use the word unprecedented because everybody uses that. We'll just say unusual. How have you noticed health and safety changed over the last few months, as in kind of what you've been asked to do, or kind of changes in your role for your customers?
I was dealing with a lot of COVID risk assessments, funnily enough. But it's been really interesting, people's understanding of what a risk assessment is and what they need to do, and the lack of knowledge around what a risk assessment is. It's suddenly like it's a brand new term that have just come out of, with social distancing or something, and it's really not. It's been there for a while. So that's been quite interesting. I've used, I feel like I'm just delivering IOSH managing safely to quite a few people quite a lot of the time, in little bite-sized chunks. Obviously there's just so much guidance out there at the moment. Even if you just look at the events industry, there's reams and reams of it, which is brilliant that we've all got that information, but people are feeling a bit confused, I think, about which ones to pick, and if keeping on top of it all, just when we think we've got it, we haven't. It's kind of so it's been a lot of that, really. And sort of doing a lot of it, like I say, risk assessment training has been the main thing. We've done quite a bit of that, actually, with all sorts of suppliers. So single photographers or freelance photographers, been looking at it with them, all the way up to the bigger venues. And as I said, the small business side as well, because obviously they're back. So that's been quite useful, that we've got to grips with the basics of the guidance that's out there, but I've been able to, with an eye on the events industry moving forward. So it's and the thing that's changed, I think, is the realization that what you do in your event can have a wider impact on the community. So before, as I said, if someone tripped over a cable or got food poisoning, it would be isolated to your event, whereas now if somebody transmits it through you having a large gathering, then that's going to bleed out into the community, and people are aware of that, which is good that they're aware, but it puts a lot more responsibility on people's shoulders, which is also scary.
And I think as well that I suppose the last few months we've more of us have been at home and had time to think, and our social media has been a massive impact on us over the last few months. So actually we're kind of more savvy, I suppose, in our expectations of, if we are going to go somewhere like to a concert or out for dinner, actually we kind of know what we expect as well, don't we? So actually then there's greater pressure on that restaurant to make sure that everything is perfect, because people are like, oh well, no, I don't want to go in there because no, I'm just not sure. And then if it's a bad experience, we all now just hit Twitter, or we put a post up somewhere and say don't go in there, and people are trying to get back to work, but actually it's getting back to work and getting it right so people are confident.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're looking at, we talked about the mental health side of safety, and I think with COVID, I think if you don't feel safe, because you can't see it, so therefore you've got to feel that there's measures in place for when you go into a restaurant, or as you say, if we end up when we go back to concerts and stuff, you've got to feel that the safety measures are in place. And it's really difficult, I think, for event or for businesses in general that are open to the public. And the pressure is, I had one cafe owner, a tea room's lovely little place, and the stress was just, she's open now, and I just keep checking her reviews, and she's got amazing reviews. People are like, oh, I wasn't going to come out, but I saw the reviews and saw that it was all safe, so we're coming. So it really just make that impact on that customer service again, but equally on your business, because actually one review that says, I didn't see hand sanitizer, or I didn't, no one was spaced out, it really, really makes a difference. So
People won't go, will they? They were like, oh no, I'll go somewhere else. And it's something so simple that can be rectified. Just, for the sake of even a small business, just giving you a call and saying, oh, I don't know what to do next. That one small action can mean that, they're open and they're getting lots of business coming through.
Yeah, and also from an enforcement point of view, depending on which local authority you're living in, they are actively going around to places that are open to the public or businesses in general. And the HSE were given a pot of money to do inspections as well. So they are out there. And there's one company that I think they've got 4 employees, but they still wanted a written risk assessment. So they said, oh, we've done all of this and we want it written down. So it's, they're really on people and really monitoring. And again, you don't want the bad publicity from that, do you? Or them to shut you down when you've just been able to reopen.
No, it isn't worth it, is it?
No.
So you deal with a lot of venues as well, so you're small businesses and with venues. So what advice would you give to venues? Kind of what are the key areas they should be looking at now, health and safety wise?
Communication would be right up there for me. So there's a lot of information out there on what you should do. So even if you just start with the government stuff and then go to your own industry specific things that apply to your venue, the communication, if you've got to train your employees, communicate with your employees to make sure they feel safe and make sure they understand what the control measures are, because you are going to get customers. You've got the whole spectrum at the moment, haven't you? We were talking about it yesterday, where you've got the people that are going out in full PPE and don't want anyone near them, and then you've got the people that are just invading your personal space all the time. There's just, and it's all, doesn't apply to them. You've got to, if employees can explain why you're doing something, you're going to really reassure your customers. I was doing some looking around for a client yesterday who wanted a risk assessment right for an event they're doing, and I was really struggling on the website to find out what the procedures were, how did you enter the building, the hotel, what was going to happen when you got into the hotel. And actually, if you can talk your customers through that journey, they're going to feel much more relaxed, and they're going to be more compliant as well to your measures that you put in place, because there's a lot that it could go wrong if you don't communicate to a customer. You could have the best systems in the world, if it's reliant on the customers doing what you've asked them to do and you haven't asked them, then that's not really that great.
Not going to happen.
No, exactly. And the other one is working with if you are a venue that's hosting events, is to work with the event owners and the contractors that either you're bringing in or they're bringing in. You should always be asking for their risk assessments anyway, but you should really making sure that they know what their measures are, what they've got to do, because it's not all on the venues. You've got to make sure that the event owners are either complying with what the venue have put in place, so they need to know that they've understood, or that if they're doing something that they need to be in control of. You want to make sure that they're not bringing additional risk into your venue that isn't necessary if you've done all that hard work. And just document your risk assessment. That is the biggest thing I can say. As I said, we've already had like 3 or 4 venues that haven't done that yet. They're smaller ones, like the big boys who've kind of got all the systems in. But just document it, review it, make sure that it's up to date with whatever the government guidance is out there at the moment.
I think, and that's really sound advice, isn't it? Because we were chatting before this, weren't we? And actually there's a few customers and clients that we've all got that we're trying to work with them to work out how to put the event on or how to open the venue, and it's really tricky to know what to advise people, because you don't really know what the guidance is. You're trying to figure out what there is out there, and we're all just trying to make sense of what's out there. So actually get it written down and just constantly review it and update it, and I suppose if you're not sure, then speak to a professional, speak to a health and safety advisor that can actually look at it from an outsider perspective as well, and give you that peace of mind that what you've written down is correct, because none of us know how to write risk assessments. We need to learn. So actually talk to somebody who does. But I think you're right, communication. I mean, it's the same as we've been saying throughout all of these chats really since the start of March, that everything's about communication now, that people want to know what's going on, that they want to know what's happening, they want to know where they can get information from. So if you keep your customers or your potential delegates updated with where you are, you're going to put their mind at rest.
Absolutely. And if your clients feel like that you've got a grip on it, and it might change. I've not a venue, but my hairdresser, thank goodness I've seen them, they've been sending messages out every time something's happened. I've never had as many emails from them as I've had now, even after I've had my haircut. But it's brilliant because I knew exactly what to expect, and I'm not really anxious about it or worried, but I knew exactly what was expected of me when I walked through that door, and it all happened is the other part of it as well.
Yes.
So if you're going to say you're going to do temperature checks, do them.
Yeah.
You're going to, all of that kind of stuff. But it, at the moment, I don't think it's seen as spam. I think it's really good to get that information. We want it, aren't we? We're all craving answers at the moment that we can't always get, but if you can do that for your customers, you've got a bit of a fighting chance of building confidence back in the industry, and also having your control measures followed is the other side of it. So.
One of the, just touching on venues again, and we did a chat with Why Boston Lakes a few weeks ago, and they've got a video out there about how the delegates kind of enter the building, and I was like, I love that idea. I love the idea of actually you're really simplifying this process. This is where you park, this is how you enter the building, this is what the reception looks like, this is it. And I think that just fills you with confidence that actually I'm just mentioning that venue in particular, that they've thought about it. And I saw a photo on LinkedIn yesterday, Ryan Doyle at Park Regis, of his registration desk and how it was all set up, all marked out, all the screens, every 2 meters apart. And people really want to see that. They really want to see, oh, you have done that. Okay, that sounds good. Okay, I'm more confident to go because I know what it looks like you said, and you know what you're walking into.
Yeah, absolutely. And I went to into a shopping mall type thing, and there was a well-known department store, big open frontage, no signage as to where you went to go in, and that's fine because it's really wide. I could social distance. So I just went to walk in, and this woman suddenly appeared from nowhere and was like, "Keep to the left." And then I was just like, "Well, I don't want to go in here now." And turned around and went out, because actually you've now made me feel really uneasy because there wasn't suitable signage in there. I didn't, I suddenly felt like I wasn't going to know what was going on when I was in there. And I think it's really important those kind of videos are made, and you can make them fun as well. They don't all have to be one of those old-fashioned safety induction videos where it's just really boring. Show your personality, show the personality of your venue, work with your clients. If you've got clients or your delegates are fun and it's a really light-hearted event, then show that. That's the
definitely
really positive side of this. You've got a chance to really show your brand whilst keeping your customers safe. It's really really good.
Cool. Yeah, no, definitely. I'm totally with you on that. I think this is the perfect time to kind of make yourself stand out in this situation and say, this is what we've done and this is who we are. So you are putting yourselves out there, but actually if you've done everything and you're going to deliver what you say, and then there's no reason not to do that.
And also use it as marketing. You can be like, our fantastically wonderful pool is now available, and you're suddenly showing off all your great facilities at the same time as reassuring people. It's a brilliant opportunity for venues. So
now we're going to talk about the vague possibility that we could have live events in the very near future. I mean, we have, everybody knows there is no date for this. It could be October, it could be later. And obviously in the events industry, it is something that we do want to get back to as and when we can, as and when it's safe to do so. So what, as a planner, as you were a planner, what would you be thinking about now, for anybody that's got live events, either hopefully this year or into next year? What should they be thinking about to start to plan their events to make sure they're kind of COVID ready, that they're thinking about all aspects of the event, bearing in mind health and safety and kind of where we are now?
I think it's finding the guidance that's most relevant to your industry, your event, whether it's outdoor, indoor, whatever it might be, and start right back at the beginning. Use it as an opportunity to pick your event to bits if you've got time, which in a good way. So that phrase that I'm sure we all know and love is, we've always done it this way. Bin it, start again. And it's a really good opportunity. Where can you change your layout? Where do you need to change your layout? What's the flow going to look like? Engage in there's loads of real experts out there that can help with, if you've got a large event, to help with the flow of your event, to make sure that you've got things where they need to be and they're not going to create bottlenecks and points of where you can't social distance. Look at your suppliers. Can they help you? Some of them have been, we're so innovative. Some of them have come out with some amazing new products, or adapted their existing products to be able to assist event owners. So have a look at those. include human behaviour in your planning. We all know you only have to look at festival sites to be on green fields to be able to see the cut throughs that all the public make that are away from your path. You know, we don't like to follow arrows, and as we've discussed before, arrows in the supermarket, people aren't following those. So let's, you know, how can you effectively direct people? How can you, because you're not going to be able to buddy every delegate up with you know, a COVID coordinator. So how are you going to get people to comply? How are you going to move people around without them feeling like they're being herded, without them feeling like they're taking all the fun and they're restricted and it's scary? How are you going to make it fun for your event and make it fit in with your event but get compliance with that social distancing? Bearing in mind the local authority, the new legislation have the power to shut down any event that they, or refuse any event that they don't feel is COVID secure. So actually, you know, you need those visual cues, you need the paperwork as well, and I keep going back to it, but that risk assessment, it's never, you know, I'm health and safety, I've always loved a good risk assessment, but now it's more crucial than ever. I don't know about you guys, but, you know, people are now asking me for my COVID risk assessment for me to go on site as a one, you know, just my own, let alone if I'm a crewing company or anything like that. So, you know, people are much more clued in to asking for that now. So just make sure it's really good. You know what you're doing. It's always been in the law that you have to write a risk assessment. It's just now you've got to write one about COVID. Yeah. So it's just a new hazard. It's just a new hazard. I'm not playing down the severity of it, but, you know, it's another hazard to look at within your venue. You know, your event, slips, trips, falls, working at height, COVID. It's just another one of those fitting in with that, really. So make sure you've got somebody competent, or that you're within your business writing it, and whether that's somebody you need to go and outsource it to somebody that can assist with that, or, you know, you've got somebody in your business that's qualified to do that, and that's great. If they're in your business, that's fantastic, because they're going to really understand what you're trying to achieve, and they're going to be able to be there all the time. Keep up to date on the guidance is the other thing, because that's just going to be ever changing, I think. I think we're still going to be having updates this time next year, it feels like. So, you know, keep reviewing that. I think the other key thing for businesses or for event organisers is going to be that contingency planning. You're going to have to, what happens if your event manager has symptoms and there's only one of them? What happens if your speaker, you know, you're going to have all your speakers in a green room together? If one of them gets it, you know, or gets symptoms, you've got to quarantine them all, or they've all got to self-isolate. So, you know, having those contingencies of bubbles of teams and, you know, backup. So if, you know, on festival sites, there's always an event manager or event director, and then a deputy who can step in for them when, you know, those times when they actually get some sleep. So have, you know, consider that in all your planning as well. Upskill people to be able to step in for people, or multi, you know, people that can do multiple roles if necessary, without impacting on their health and safety, and obviously their mental health as well. You can't have them in 5 places at once. But what is that? You know, is it, for example, we have, because it's normally only one safety advisor on every job, because it doesn't normally need more than 2, or depending on the role. But we always have somebody else, at least one other person in the business, that knows everything about that event. And we had it last year where one of our guys, his mum had to go to hospital. She's fine, but he rang me. She needs to go. I'm on my way. Drove to Oxford, carried on, climbed, no blip. So you want that in your business, that actually if somebody went sick, you could, you know, even if it's just a case of waiting for the 24 hours for the test, at least for 24 hours you've got somebody else on site who's keeping that event going and keeping those standards up for you.
I think you've kind of summed it up there, haven't you, really, that actually this is a chance that if you've got a live event coming up, hopefully this year, maybe next year, whenever it is, it's a chance to kind of go back to square one again and go, right, let's look at how we've planned it so far and think, what do we need to do, how do we need to change it? And it's just a chance to you know, to maybe do it differently, and to look at what you need to include, and not be scared to make changes and things, you know, and because, you know, no event's ever perfect, so there's always time to go back and improve it and add new elements to it. And I think you're right, this is a really good time to look at how you actually plan and who's involved, and, you know, your team aspects to it. You know, I like the idea of a COVID buddy. I think I'm having a career change and I'm going to do that. Come on, I'll show you around this festival site all weekend.
Absolutely, yeah.
No
but we're
problem.
going to see who I want to see, not who you want to see.
Yeah, that's it. As long as you see this band, we're fine. But no, that in seriousness, that's all brilliant information that you've given about, for venues and for organisers, because I think we're all a bit in a pickle, really. There's all this information coming at us, and we're like, oh my good Lord, how do I process it? What do I need to do? And how do I communicate that to other people? I think that's the thing as well, that you kind of understand it, but then like, how am I going to get this down? So I think you've kind of helped everybody there by just giving like the key points and saying, right, this is kind of how you need to look at it. So thank you so much. That's been fab and fascinating. But you're not going yet, though. Now it is time for me to hand over to Jo, and she will have hopefully some challenging questions from our audience.
Like exam season again.
Hopefully not too challenging. Do you think, Helen, that it's worth event organisers undertaking specific training for COVID management? Do you think that would be a good requirement for event organisers to do?
Yeah, I think generally all event organisers should have some health and safety knowledge. And I say that if they all go and get skilled up, then I won't have a job. So I do genuinely mean that, because I can't, the more people that have health and safety knowledge in general on an event is brilliant, because they'll be constantly troubleshooting for you. With the COVID stuff, absolutely, even a basic level that, there's some great courses out there. There's the WHO stuff, the World Health Organization. In fact, I'll put together a list that you can pop in the group.
Fab, thank you.
Some of the ones that you can do, and most of it is free, because it is just, let's share, the more people that know how to prevent it spreading, the better for all of us. So it's not one of these that people are looking to make money off, which is fantastic, really. Nice.
That's good.
But yeah, absolutely, have some basic understanding, because you are going to get asked questions. And if you can, we've all had the, we've all seen the different myths going out on Facebook and Twitter, and, there's the headlines. I've had people quoting headlines at me that they've only read the headline and nothing underneath.
Oh.
And then you're just, so you've got to be prepared for that kind of, well, I'm sure it's meant to be this. And, and if you understand a little bit more about it, then you're going to be able to be much more confident in your measures within the business as well.
That's great. Question from Claire. If you're not happy with a contractor's risk assessment, would you push it back to them? How would you manage that situation?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's a big chunk of it. It's their duty of care to their employees. So it's looking at whether it's going to impact on your event. And sometimes it's a case of they don't know how to write a risk assessment. So our first point of call is normally to ring up the person or arrange a call and say, talk me through this. And they normally have at least 50% more information than they've written down. And then I can, as a health and safety person, will say, maybe just include these bits in your risk assessment. And they do, and then we're fine. So that would always be my first port of call. So we sort of do it from a helpful perspective, because obviously you don't really want to go and find new contractors, especially if they've only submitted the risk assessments 48 hours before. So you need to you've got that opportunity, and like I say, most people can talk you through a risk assessment much better than they can write one. So yeah, do that first. But if you're really not happy, absolutely not, they don't come on site. Really straightforward. There's kind of a few markers before you get to the not letting them on site point.
Who enforces the health and safety law at events? Is it always the event planner, or would the venue staff be,
It's a joint duty of care, so it's always good to confirm this with your venue. So I know, for example, from a arena point of view, we would be on site for the whole load in to load out in shifts, but doors couldn't open until the event manager and the front of house manager was comfortable. So because we had the duty of care to the public, but then if we saw anything going slightly unsafe from a production point of view, we would then take that to the relevant person if we had time to. If it needed to stop immediately, then we'd obviously step in, because that's where it is everybody's duty. Yeah. If you see something that's, you know, inherently unsafe, it doesn't matter what job you're doing, you should be stopping that activity really until you can go and get the correct manager or supervisor to deal with it accordingly. But yeah, so it's a joint thing, and it is really, it's the thing is to get that clear information from the venue when you're booking them. What's your responsibilities, what's mine? So some venues, for example, will include the first aiders in it. Some will expect you to bring your own, some will, you know, it's all very different depending on it. So you need to make sure, but obviously if you're operating under their license as well, there will be different, they will have a bigger duty under the Licensing Act as well as health and safety.
That's brilliant. And just a couple more and then I'll hand back to Karen. So what issues have you found with selling, what issues have you seen already with venues opening from a health and safety perspective? Are there things that are glaringly obvious to you that you think other venues could learn from if they're listening in today?
I think that communication thing, as I said, I spent a good 2 hours yesterday. I couldn't get hold of anyone from the venue because obviously some of them are still furloughed, so the ones that are there are stretched. So I couldn't get hold of anyone to find out what their procedures were, how they were going to serve the food. So we knew what we'd ordered, but we didn't know how it was coming out to us. And I was having to write the risk assessment for that, which makes it quite difficult. So the more you can have available on your website, the less burden you're going to put on your staff to be answering the same questions all the time, and also the more confidence you give to your organisers, and signage as well. But again, don't just have black and yellow tape everywhere and the standard safety signage. You know, you can make informational signage your own and brand it as much, but just make sure it is obvious and succinct. I think that's the key bit, and just really help your event organisers, because some of them, especially if you're looking at, you know, small meetings, maybe like AGMs and that kind of stuff, or team days, they maybe don't have the skill set to understand, you know, to really know what they need to do, and you want them to comply with what you've put in place. So you kind of have a duty really to make sure that they fully understand it. So that communication piece is
communication
really
is key, definitely.
Really, yeah, and it seems really obvious. When I was thinking about it, I was like, it's just so obvious. But actually, the more and more, we've probably dealt with at least 5 venues already in the last week. Well, I just couldn't get anything off them because, you know, somebody knew what was happening. And again, that as soon as you make the call, they say, yeah, we're doing this, and this. But I don't want to be making the call all the time, you know, because I can't, you know, sometimes it took 24 hours to get hold of them, and you want to be making decisions quickly at the moment. With the way things are rolling. You've got to move fast or don't move at all.
I think that's it. Like you say, communication's key, isn't it? I'm going to hand back to Karen. We could chat for all afternoon on this subject, I'm sure. But thank you, Helen. Thanks.
Oh, thanks, Helen. Thank you for answering those questions. I know that it is a subject that we've all got loads of questions on because we don't really know what to do, and I think it's just constant questions, isn't it? You know, we're still waiting for clarification on lots of points. So thank you for answering that. But so before we go, I just wanted to say a big thank you to Helen and giving up her time this afternoon. It's been great to talk to you as always, and you know, we really appreciate the time you've taken out today. So thank you. Also, thank you to Jo for managing all those questions that are coming in. You know, we work as a team, so it's great that we're both on the chat today. And also, thank you to Gino, who you can't see, but without him, this wouldn't even happen because he kind of gets us all on screen, looking okay and sounding okay. So thank you, Gino. And thanks everybody for joining us. So, yeah, have a good day. We'll see you all soon. Thank you.